In the last episode, is the great power crossing the river in the changing world. The first episode of The Roar of Central South Swordsman. In the first episode, I proposed a concept. The concept of a great power crossing the river. That is, today's China, the US, and Russia all want to cross the river. So today's program is the second episode of this series. I named this episode Crossing the River for Great Powers. The top-level design of the United States. Today's program is not short. I don't know how many times you will get up, how many times you will sit up in bed, especially the third sentence of my final shout. The third sentence. If my prediction comes true in the future, it can be regarded as a small contribution to national decision-making. Love at first sight. Climb high and look far. The topic of this episode is the top-level design of the U.S. Russia want to use a so-called special military operation to break the blockade, to obtain a seaport and trade channels. It's like a river-crossing operation. But Putin gave an order. As soon as they started, the U.S. had a plan in advance and prepared. Seeing Putin had been fooled, Biden, Pelosi, and others were happy and rubbing their hands. So they seized the opportunity at the most vulnerable and dangerous moment. The most vulnerable and dangerous moment, and launched a comprehensive attack on Russia. Now Russia is still in the river. Biden and his team have been preparing for so many years, waiting for this day, because you know that, for a river-crossing operation, the most dangerous situations are the following. The first situation is the preparation stage before crossing. The intelligence sources are inaccurate. Unknown enemy situation. There are not enough crossing tools, or they have been destroyed. For example, when the Red Army was preparing to cross the Dadu River, Chiang Kai-shek had already ordered Liu Wenhui to seize the boats in Anshanchang and destroy them. When the Red Army arrived, the few boats they got were hidden by the local people in advance. This greatly increased the difficulty and danger of crossing the river. Another example is that at the Anshanchang ferry, the river was 300 meters wide and dozens of meters deep, and there were reefs and whirlpools in the middle. At that time, the available ships were limited, which made the crossing process very difficult. So, in 2022, if Russia wanted to cross the river, and Putin wants to cross the river, how well prepared they are for this? It can be said that the preparations are very insufficient. On the one hand, on February 21, 2022, Putin presided over the Russian Federal Security Council. We can see that, where the Donbass issue was discussed. You can see that he was hesitant at the meeting. Naryshkin can explain the problem. At that time, Naryshkin was panicked, hesitating, and avoided the question. The world was watching live. Putin finally got impatient. He said, "Naryshkin, don't talk about anything else. I just ask you whether you agree or not." At that time, Naryshkin was like a primary school student. Finally, he said, "I agree." So what does this mean? It shows that the top decision-makers, the source of the situation is inaccurate, an unknown enemy situation. But Naryshkin knew the real situation, but he dared not say it on this occasion, and couldn't say. The result is, as a result, due to the corruption and traitors in the Russian army, inaccurate intelligence, an unknown enemy situation, which led Putin to misjudge, resulted in the Russian army's defeat at Antonov Airport. You see, the Western media later reported that the Russian army had a bad start. Then Putin, on the grounds of intelligence error, ordered the arrest of more than over 150 agents, including the head of the 5th Division of FSB, Beseda, and his deputy, Beryuk. This is the most dangerous situation I mentioned. The first case occurred in the preparation stage before crossing. The second most dangerous stage is in the process of crossing, is more dangerous when crossing halfway. The most dangerous. Those who have seen our movies Dadu River and the bloody Battle of Xiangjiang should understand. When crossing the river halfway, 3 situations are the most dangerous. First, suddenly encounter enemy fire attacks. Second, the river's water level rises suddenly, and hidden reefs and whirlpools in the river, and unclear water. Third, suddenly encounter ship leaks, or bridge fracture and other emergencies. Could all lead to the crossing troops being in trouble, or even shipwrecks and casualties. So, do you think Russia has encountered such a situation today? Since the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Russian official has not released any specific numbers, casualty figures. The casualties numbers given by Western Ukraine are also inflated. But you can see from one point that the Russian casualties are heavy. That is the joining of the Peninsula forces. If the Russian casualties were not large, would it be necessary to send the 8th Company? Okay, let's look at the river crossing operation again. The third most dangerous stage is after crossing the river. There are two situations. The first is that the vanguard successfully crosses the river, but after crossing, the bridge was blown up by the enemy, or the ships are sunk. The follow-up troops are blocked from following up, and cannot cross the river in time, resulting in the division of the crossing force, and isolated, and there is a risk of being divided and annihilated. So please pay attention. When I talk about this, please don't just think about Russian Special Forces, the isolation of Russian Special Forces at Antonov Airport. I'm not only talking about the military level, but also the political and economic aspects. This is the first case. The second case, the vanguard crossing troops successfully crossed the river, but due to their unstable footing, they were counterattacked by the enemy on the other side. At this time, if the enemy on the other side is heavily guarded and quickly counterattack, it may cause a major blow to the entire crossing force. A major blow. This not only happened in the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, the Battle of Kherson in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And you see, when Sherdakay was defeated at Dadu River, it was because Sherdakay's troops reached the Dadu River. The Qing army blocked them on the other side. Sherdakay then chose to cross the river at Anshunchang. But eventually, due to the rapid river, they couldn't cross the river smoothly, and was also chased and blocked by the Qing army, resulting in the annihilation of the entire army. Okay, the above is about a river crossing operation. The three most dangerous situations. I have finished. Before, during, and after crossing the river. After listening to me, what is the top-level design of the U.S.? Combined with the content of my first episode, let me summarize it. There are 3 points. The first point is that, you see, what American politicians talk about every day is that China is a challenger and destroyer of the rules. And destroyers and the Chinese don't follow the rules, and destroy the existing international order and rules. I think this statement is currently the biggest and the most deceptive lie. Why? Because China is not a challenger or destroyer of the order and destroyer, but they want to portray China as a challenger and destroyer. China's achievements today, not stolen, not by fanning the flames or taking advantage of the situation, but through our hard work and our ingenuity, through our hard work, our intelligence, and our 5+2. So how can it be said that it is destructive? On the contrary, the U.S. is the challenger and destroyer of international rules. In this world, the only country that really wants to change the world order is only one, is the United States, because as you can see from history, the prosperity of the United States is due to war, and its wealth and hegemony came from wars. The more chaotic the world, the more benefits the U.S. gains. I'm not saying this without evidence. Let's use data to speak. Over 200 years, the United States has gained rich benefits. In World War I, 66 million people were involved, with 3.749 million casualties, with economic expenses of $359 billion. The First World War brought unprecedented wealth to the U.S. The Allied countries in World War I bought $150 billion of goods. Most of the $15 billion went to American steel and arms and energy companies. You see, When we hear of DuPont in the United States